The ayes have it. The bill is set down for third reading forthwith.
Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Nick Smith.
Mr. Speaker, I move that the Housing Legislation Amendment Bill be now read a third time. Mr. Speaker, this amendment bill will get more houses built. This bill will get houses built more quickly, and it should be getting the full support of this Parliament. It will do so by ensuring a smooth transition to Auckland's unitary plan. It will do so by allowing more land to be available for land more quickly in other parts of New Zealand, and it will do so by providing certainty over the Crown Land Housing Development Programme. Mr. Speaker, the parties opposing this bill have actually shown they are far more interested in wallowing in the stories of hardship over housing than actually getting more roofs built over the heads of Kiwi families. The greatest irony is that Labor has called for a state of emergency across New Zealand over housing, but oppose urgency in this House for the very bills that will make a difference. Let's be clear about three things in respect of housing. The first is on the demand side. It is at record levels because New Zealand is doing well. Our economy is growing strongly, unemployment is low and falling, we are a safe and well-governed country, and interest rates are at the lowest level in 60 years. So housing demand is at record levels. The second, Mr. Speaker, is that construction is booming. Statistics New Zealand has just reported the highest level of building activity ever in New Zealand, topping $18 billion in the last year. Residential building has grown nationally by 20% per annum for every one of the last 5 years. I've checked the records all the way back to 1922, and there has never been as period of long sustained growth. Independent reports show we are on track for this boom to continue until 2021. In Auckland, we are on schedule to build the equivalent of a whangarei in Auckland in this term of Parliament and another whangarei in the next Parliament. My third point, Mr. Speaker, is that land use policy is the single most important public policy issue affecting housing supply and affordability. The Productivity Commission says so, the Treasury says so, the OECD says so. We also know from our own experience in Christchurch, we're using the special earthquake provision powers and freeing up land. We have a well-functioning market, thousands of good new homes, 3-bedroom, available on the market at $450,000. We've got house price inflation in Christchurch of only 2 or 3%, and we've had rents in that market drop by 8% over the last year. So, Mr. Speaker, let me turn to the detail of this bill. It will allow 8 greenfield special housing areas totalling 762 hectares in Auckland that are well advanced in the planning and design process to enable 7,900 homes to be built. This is significant. It amounts to $4 billion of additional housing investment that will be able to be facilitated and ensure it progresses. The simple question for Parliament is this: do we want to send those 7 developments, $4 billion worth of housing, back to square one? Members on this side of the House says, no, we don't. Members opposite who have voted against this bill are voting to block those housing developments. The bill also allows the extension for 3 years of the Housing Accords and Special Housing Bill in other parts of New Zealand. The original Act was very focused on Auckland, but the growth pressures are now being held more widely. The National Policy Statement for Urban Development will take time for councils to free up land. That NPS requires that to be done over 3 years, and so it makes sense for the special housing areas to be able to be used in the interim to be able to free up more land. These measures are supported by local government New Zealand, and I've received letters from a number of councils that want access to this flexible tool. Now, the second part of this bill is that which Labor has got in a lather about. The amendment makes plain what is already in the 1955 Housing Act, that the government can approve housing development schemes and sell the houses. It's what government's been doing for years. It's what we're doing in Hobsonville, where now over 1,000 houses being completed. And ironically, it's what we have done in Weymouth, where Mr Little visited and said we should be doing more of those types of schemes. Now, Labor has claimed and caused this huge promotion in the House, saying that these are very significant changes that affect people's property rights. Let me read exactly what Treasury's Independent Regulatory Impact Unit said on these changes long before this controversy in an email dated the 3rd of October. Quote, word for word, the minor avoidance of doubt provision in the Housing Act doesn't need a regulatory impact statement. It is minor and it doesn't change any rights. It is simply a clarification of existing legislative intent, quote unquote. Let me quote it again. It is minor and it does not change any rights. So there it is, without political spin, straight from a government official. It is why the government is wanting to make the change, is to provide the certainty for business. We are wanting to get on and sign contracts for significant developments of land, and understandably, if we're going to get the best deal for the taxpayer and the most houses, we need to get certainty in the law. If there's something members on this side of the House understand, certainty is everything for business, particularly when they're going to be investing tens and hundreds of millions of dollars in building the houses that this country needs. People who are wanting to delay this minor clarification of the law are actually wanting to make it harder for the government to get on and build houses on vacant public land. And remember, it's on these vacant blocks of public land that the government is able to put quite tough requirements to ensure the houses that are being built are in the medium price range, and also to deliver at least 20% of social housing. Mr Speaker, the greatest irony is this. For all the debate over the last 2 days, I have actually not heard a single cogent argument against any of the three provisions. And here's the irony. Labor is out there saying that it's going to build tens of thousands of houses under its Kiwi Build policy on vacant Crown land. Are they saying when they build those houses, they're going to offer them to the former landowners and not to ordinary New Zealanders? If they really believe their opposition to this bill, Mr Speaker, they would promise to repeal it. They won't, because they know in their heart of hearts it is the practical measures that are required to ensure this country gets on and builds as many houses as is practically possible. Mr Speaker, this bill is a sensible measure. It sits alongside our RMA reforms, the work to develop an urban development authority, changes to the Building Act, changes to the Unit Titles Act, because there is not
a single magic bullet to this housing challenge. We need to do a whole lot of things well, and this bill is part of what will make the difference and ensure we maintain that record growth of housing construction in New Zealand.
The question is
Mr.
that
Speaker.
the motion be agreed to. I call Phil Twyford.
It's almost all